Conservatives.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, what are your fiscal anchors?
Madam Chair, and I'd like to say thank you to the member of the committee. It's a real pleasure to see you. We have been very clear during the campaign that we will be balancing the operating budget in the next 3 years.
That's your fiscal anchor?
That is a fiscal anchor that we have been talking about and that we put in the platform.
Are there more?
We said that there will be a declining deficit to GDP over the same period.
Okay, so the deficit to GDP ratio that you're claiming is supposed to decline, the PBO says that he doesn't think so. And he doesn't even think that you have fiscal anchors right now. Is he right?
I would say different parliamentary budget officers have had a different view, I would say, than the one you're referring to now. I would say, Madam Chair, Canadians should rejoice because Canada has a very strong fiscal position. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7.
Minister,
we have the lowest deficit to GDP ratio in the G7.
Sticking on the deficit to GDP ratio,
countries in the G7
your
which
fiscal
has
to
a
GDP
AAA
ratio
credit rating.
was supposed to be 1%. It's doubled right now. And you're saying that it's supposed to decline. It doesn't look like it's going to decline. You literally, according to the PBO, are going to have 80% higher deficits, and the economy is shrinking. So how do you square that? How do you square having higher deficits, a shrinking economy? Your deficit to GDP ratio is already double what you claimed it was supposed to be. How is it supposed to decline?
Madam Chair, I have more confidence in Canadians and the Canadian economy perhaps than my colleague. Canada has a very enviable fiscal position. When you look at the G7, Madam Chair, and I attend these meetings, I chair them, you would say that our colleagues would say that Canada has a very stable fiscal position. We have the means of our ambition, and we're going to seize that generational opportunity. Having the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit to GDP ratio in the G7, plus a AAA credit rating, I would argue, and I know you're the official critics for finance, so you would know that, that is a pretty enviable position. Only Germany has a AAA credit rating in the G7, and Canada is one of them.
You know,
we have a
Canada
very strong
has
fiscal
the
position.
Fastest shrinking economy in the G7, and saying that we would have the AAA credit rating is almost like a participation ribbon right now for Canadians waiting in food bank lines, because they're the ones who are suffering with your government spending. And again, you didn't answer the question specifically. You're claiming that the deficit to GDP ratio is going to be going down, but there's no specifics. Are you saying that in this fantasy budget that somehow the GDP is going to massively grow at the same time having deficits that are going to be 80% higher than what even Justin Trudeau had, which is surprising?
I think it's pretty offensive for Canadians who are listening this morning to your comments, because Canadians will be reminded that your government...
I'll correct you, Minister, that the PBO
party,
said that about your ratio. He said that your ratio is very alarming, stupefying, shocking, and unsustainable. That's what the PBO said. We agree. Canadians agree. Do you agree?
I would say there is Kevin Page said, and I quote, Madam Chair,
is the PBO lying?
Madam Chair, do you want me to answer? Otherwise, I'm happy to listen to your question.
It was a yes or no answer, Minister.
But if you want me to answer, if you just want to ask the question and the answer, Canadians will
follow
their judgment.
Yes, Mr. Turnbull.
Sure, I know that it's the informal practice at committee, because I've been on many committees, to give the minister at least as much time as it took the member to ask the question, at least. The minister wasn't even able to get the first word out.
On the point of order.
Mr. Kelly.
The minister ran my colleague's clock earlier in the round. I think it works itself out.
Okay,
Mr. Hillan, I'll just ask everyone to maintain a respectful atmosphere. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, I don't see the minister will answer that, because we all believe the PBO in saying that the finances are unsustainable. Moving on, like you said in your statement, you want to make operational spending, whatever that is, and balance it in 3 years. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, tried this failed experiment in the UK last year. It failed horribly, and now you guys are trying to try the same accounting trick here in Canada. When at the end of the day, the bottom line is still the bottom line. I'll quote the PBO and what he's saying for your claims about splitting it between operating and capital costs. The PBO said, "We haven't seen a clear definition of what would fall into capital and would fall into operating." He further said about your operating budget that we currently don't have a definition of operating budget. He went on to say something very alarming. The bottom line of the government will not change, which means debt is still debt at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how many columns you try to present in front of Canadians and try to trick them. He went on to say the international public sector standards that everyone uses to measure the deficit and levels of debt will not change. The first reason that won't change is those are the accounting standards. The second reason is the ratings agencies won't let you change it. That's the first thing they're going to go to. And if they have a sniff that somehow there's a change in presentation, you bet your boots that we're going to be paying more for debt pretty quickly. So you guys are going to try the same failed experiment that Mark Carney advised the UK government on just last year. So are you guys going to be cooking the books, trying to trick Canadians with these tricky accounting practices, or both?
I think, Madam Chair, it's irresponsible for a member of Parliament to use language like that. I will say that. It's irresponsible. Because the member knows full well that we're not replacing anything, we're adding. This is a new lens for people at home to understand.
Would the minister
distinction.
agree debt is debt?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to listen to his question, but if I'm not allowed to respond to the same time, I've been a minister for quite some time in this House. Normally, I have the same time than
That's
the
why
colleague.
it's not a new government.
Canadians deserve to correct the record because that was an irresponsible statement.
Minister, and thank you, Mr. Hilon. That's time for that round.
Hello, Minister. You were named Minister at the beginning of 2025. You didn't bring down a budget, and the Prime Minister dropped a writ, held elections, and all of this in the context of the tariffs that have been imposed. And you come back in May, and you said no budget this fall. And you were contradicted by the Prime Minister in public to that effect. You said no to that budget and that timing. So if you're not telling us whether or not there's going to be a budget next spring, but the committee was blocked in its work. There are more than 200 groups from Quebec during all this time that wanted to speak in public before the committee, not behind closed doors like you Liberals do. With you, we're talking about pre-budget consultations. Well, is this the new approach of the government to say the Prime Minister consults behind closed doors, consults friends, groups come to see us in our ridings, and they say, we want consultation. Is this the new norm for Canadians? As Vice Chair of the committee, I see that you got a great deal of happiness in your voice today. There have been consultations a month ago. You all asked for a new way of operating, and we respect what Parliament has asked us to do. You asked us to consult the provinces. I've done all that. And not only do I issue press communiques, press releases, I met with the press just before coming here. So that should certainly help you to be able to say to Canadians what is being done. You asked me to do things, Mr. Garon, and I did them to the benefit of all parliamentarians. Imagine you'll have all next summer to consult. 1 year it took. Madam Chair, he took 5.5 minutes. The minister knows what he's doing with the clock. The minister is telling us that he's going to bring in a budget, but he's consulted no one publicly. And he tells us that the world has changed, that the situation has changed, and he has just told us, you be happy, because we haven't consulted anyone. But we're getting phone calls from groups who want public consultation. The new approach is that everything behind closed doors. Mr. Minister, are you in control of your department? And I'm going to tell you why I ask you this question. In the summer, there was a request made to cut across the board by 15%. In the spring budget, there was a supply bill that was increased by 26%, an increase of 300% in certain areas. So, Mr. Minister, there was an increase of 16% in other areas. So, what happens when you change your ideas like that? Have you lost control of your department? I hear much happiness in your tone, Mr. Garon, this morning. I worked all summer, and Mr. Turnbull should be offended by what you are saying. 57 bilaterals, 26 cities, 13 provinces and territories, 8,700 questions, 8,700 rather, questionnaires that were filled out by Canadians. You know, if you don't call that work, Mr. Minister, I know that you do appreciate my questions. How can you say in the same speech that you consult the committee, that consultation with the opposition parties is important, and yet you come out with a budget and the last 200 groups that were supposed to appear in committee have had to wait a year? How are you even capable of saying such things? Is that the Liberal thinking? You should be happy to see the extent that I respect Parliament. Mr. Garon, I know that you want to make clips for social media, but the reality is this. 3,000 and some... My questions are tough ones, I know, but I believe they are respectful. When I have groups, and it happened last week, groups come to see us, and they say, not only have we heard nothing from the minister, he doesn't even acknowledge what we've sent him. The minister tells us we should be jovial. When 5 minutes before the committee comes on, he announces what he should have done earlier this year. And then he accuses me of wanting to just make TikTok clips. What is happening with this government? How disconnected can they be from the public, from the Canadians? We wait another year to have appearances before committee? It's awful. Well, Mr. Garon, if you want, we had 83,000, submissions and questionnaires filled out. The committee was not consulted. The committee was not consulted, Madam Chair. Your time is up, Mr. Garon.
Conservatives, Mr. Halan, you are going to be taking this round.
Thank you. Minister, since your government doubled the national debt, Canadians are stuck with a bill that sees more tax dollars going to bankers and bondholders in interest payments on the debt your government accumulated than what goes to healthcare transfers to the provinces. Can you confirm in Budget 2025, bankers and bondholders will get less than what goes to provinces for healthcare transfers?
You know what? I won't stand here and to be lectured by a member of the Conservative, Madam Chair, who voted against every measure we presented to support Canadians. This member and his colleagues have voted against pharmacare.
Minister,
they voted
it was a
against
simple
dental
question.
care.
Can you just
They
confirm that
voted
for
against
Canadians
helping children with
healthcare transfers
with
will
the
be
children's food
larger
program across the nation,
than what
Madam
goes
Chair.
to bankers and bondholders? It's a simple yes or no question, Minister. As usual, you're not answering.
For Canadians who are watching you, I think they should go to look at your voting record and really answer the question, why did you vote against
So I will take
families
that
and workers when we
as
provided
bankers and
support?
I would
When you
just
want to talk
ask
about
members and the
affordability.
minister not to talk over each other. For the
I'll
interpreters,
take
please.
that as the bankers and bondholders will once again get more money in interest payments on this government's debt on Canadian taxpayers than what goes to healthcare transfers. Minister, in September of 2023, you made a big spectacle. You were going to haul in all the grocery store CEOs, and you claimed that by Thanksgiving 2023, grocery prices would come down. 2 years later, it's almost Thanksgiving 2025. Grocery inflation has skyrocketed due to Liberal grocery tax and other taxes and the amount of money that you guys spent. On top of all that, we see overall grocery price inflation has increased to almost 7%. Essentials at the grocery store, like ground beef, is up 30% since then. Apples almost up 40%. Tomatoes up 15%. Chicken up 20%. And food prices are rising 50% faster in Canada than the U.S. When will food prices and grocery prices come down?
Well, I would say, Madam Chair, for Canadians who are watching, I invite you to vote in favor of C4. C4 provides a middle-class tax cut to 22 million
Will
Canadians.
C4 lower grocery prices,
leaving-
yes or no?
I could not understand the question, Madam Chair, because I was talking whilst the member was asking me to respond. But I would say I would invite all the members, and I'm sure because he's a very influential member of the Conservative caucus, to convince his colleagues to vote for C4, because C4 actually will reduce taxes for 22 million Canadians. That is the kind of measure that puts more money in the pockets of Canadians, and that's the kind of affordability measure that Canadians will be wanting.
Minute pour moi. Écoutez, vous avez dit qu'il y a eu plusieurs tables
Listen, you
rondes.
said that there were a number of round tables that were done during the summer. It's October 6th now, and November 4th. On November 4th, we're going to have the budget. So what are we doing here in the Finance Committee? What are we being useful? No opposition member has been able to participate in those meetings that were held. There have been no meetings for us. You tell us that we have an important role in the Finance Committee. You're a politician that I respect very much. But what respect do you have here in our committee? Well, you should be happy that with what we've done, because you, the committee, asked us to change the cycle. We had a committee report that requested the budgetary cycle be changed. And in your current, Minister, it is October 6th. The Minister, you have all next summer to consult. We did it, but it's up to you now to decide to consult people. But what you are saying is that we have to do this individually. The Finance Committee did not work as a committee to consult. No, you should celebrate what is being done today. I know a lot of people in your area from your home riding, and in Quebec, they're being very happy because we're aligning ourselves better with the construction season. But with the supply bill, you'll have a better view of what's going to be happening. You should be really happy. Minister, I have a few questions for you in limited time. The PBO his role is to give a non-partisan, neutral, and independent analysis of what is being done. Are you satisfied with Mr. Jacques meeting these standards with what he has done? Yeah. Oh, you're saved by the bell, Minister. Yes, your time is up.